Hello and good morning to California. I have to say I have the utmost respect for you joining us right now because it's super early in California right now. So thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Hi. Can we hear you?
Hi there.
Hi there.
Thanks for having me.
So just a short introduction why we are doing this talk today. At the Human Rights Film Festival Berlin last year, we had two outstanding documentaries who used deepfake as a means to protect their protagonists. And via this, we came upon this very interesting topic. And then I did a little research, and I came across Hao, whose firm, whose company actually created the technology that was used after the death of Paul Walker to finish the film project, The Fast and the Furious 7. Despite you developing this technology which uses deepfake, you're also an outstanding advocate to point out the risks of deepfake. So I would suggest that we directly start into the conversation. And my first question is, in order to gain a better understanding, what exactly is deepfake and why is it considered as such dangerous technology?
Yeah, so a deepfake is a special form of AI media synthesis. And the original deepfake solution was basically a software that emerged on the internet back in the late 2017. And what it did was it could actually take a video sequence and face swap your face with the face of someone else. So all you had to do is basically take a video of someone doing something, and you wanted the face of the person to be swapped with another person. You would basically download the software Deepfakes. You would take some footages of a target person that you wanted. So usually you need around 5,000, 10,000 frames of that. And then you train a model and you run the software. And what it does is that it creates a very, very convincing new video where the face is replaced with someone else. And what's interesting about the solution is that it uses recent advancements in AI. So it's using deep neural networks to generate very, very convincing faces, something that was previously only possible with very expensive visual effects. And sometimes the results are even better, right? So it's very, very convincing. So all you need is to have access to the internet, and you can easily generate replace the face of someone else. So that's not to be confused with, more general forms of AI media synthesis. There are many, many different techniques that uses these kind of AI techniques to manipulate videos.
When I researched the issue, I came across that deepfake is used widely. In particular, this face swapping technology is, for example, used for revenge porn, which was very shocking to me on how broad this is used and how easy it seems to be. But coming back to your work, your company creates virtual avatars, if I understood it correctly, which are based just on a few pictures. When I saw an documentary with you in it, it was like 4 pictures of a person, and then you can completely reenact this person. For you, for which purpose did you create this technology, and what are your ambitions behind it, and where are also, with the technology you created, the risks of misusing it?
Right. So first of all, like many of us computer vision researchers, we always, one of our goals is basically to make the digitization of, virtual humans, more realistic, more accessible. And, the main applications are usually in films and video games, or more recently shifted more to immersive applications that uses augmented and virtual reality. So just think of like, the metaverse ambitions from Facebook, 3D avatars are the foundations for these kind of telepresence capabilities. So what it means is that we want to develop a solution that does not require, digital artists or a studio to generate a digital human. We're looking at solutions that allow anyone to actually digitize themselves, right? So when we started developing these technologies, we had no thoughts about these kind of things being used for video manipulation. The main goal was basically, how do we create better, more realistic avatars? How do we make them more accessible? And while we were creating those, we started to experiment with different algorithms. We started with data-driven techniques, and more recently using deep generative models, which are one specific way of using AI to basically generate highly realistic digital humans with very realistic faces. And as we develop these kind of techniques, other people are also experimenting drastically with how to use these things for all kinds of image and video manipulations. So one of the problems with deepfakes is that instead of generating a 3D avatar, you can easily use it to manipulate an image, or even better, a video. Now, why is that something that is dangerous? So, for instance, you can basically take a video of someone, or you can make a video doing whatever you want, and you can pretend to be another person. You can anonymize yourself. You can make someone do something or say something that they have never done. And this, one of the first forms of misuse that people have been using this technology for is, non-consensual pornography. Simply, the first time I heard about the word deepfake was, from a news article, and people are using, they're creating porns with celebrities in them. And, what was kind of disturbing was that the output was disturbingly real. And obviously, what you can also do with it is you can harass people. People have been, harassed using deepfakes. It's a very dangerous tool that can be used for disinformation campaigns. We've actually seen already during the Ukraine war, there were some really badly made, video manipulations where President Zelensky is saying things that he never said, right? But so for these kind of use cases, it's relatively easy to spot that they have been manipulated. But cases where the person may not be so well known, it can be a very dangerous tool for fraud, right? So you can basically pretend to be someone else and defraud a company, for instance, pretend you are investors and try to gain access to information.
I remember one of the first deepfake videos I saw was President Obama. I think that went viral, and it was really. I mean, you could still see that it's not real, but it was very close. So when I researched the topic, I came across a series of articles where you warned that within a very small matter of time, deepfakes will get so good that we won't be able to say if they are real or not. How far is the technology right now? And if we come to that point where we can't say if it's real or not, what needs to be done to create awareness in the public, but also like for example, journalists to find out what's real and what's fake?
Well, first of all, if you ask me, I think you can already create deepfakes that are so real that it can fool people, and usually with a little bit of production effort, you can make virtually perfect deepfakes that a person can't really tell the difference or not. But I think on the good news, there has been a lot of research efforts and also a lot of funding from the government and various corporations on advancing, for instance, deepfake detection techniques. So it's interesting because the way you would detect these kind of video manipulation is also based on AI. So you sort of have this like arms race between how do you make more realistic deepfakes and how do you create techniques that can actually detect them. So there has been some advancement there. So some of the top methods for detecting if something is a deepfake basically analyze how you mouth move, and even for a human, you can't really tell if something has been manipulated. But these kind of more advanced methods, they're quite robust in telling if something is a deepfake. So now, just imagine, right? So if the way we're consuming videos nowadays, we're watching things on social media. So I think it's important for social media companies to basically adopt these kind of detection frameworks. It's even if we can probably detect to a certain percentage of the time, but in addition to that, I think it's important to have a mechanism that flags if something is potentially a deepfake or not. And I think platforms like Twitter or Facebook, they have these type of mechanisms.
So basically, that if someone uploads a video on Facebook, they run an algorithm over it and then mark it as fake. That's what. Or not allow it to upload it, or.
No, they could mark it. They could either say there's, they could either flag that, this is suspicious. I think, the right solution is basically to, to flag something as, this is potentially manipulated or something, so that people know that, so that people are aware of it, right? So I think that it's dangerous when people don't know if something is a deepfake or not. The other issue is not only whether something has been manipulated or not. The other question is basically if the manipulation was malicious or not, right? And that's actually something that's much harder to classify if you're given a video. But there are people who are working on research in this direction.
What I found interesting, I'm currently curating the next Human Rights Film Festival, and I came across a documentary about a politician and a political scandal. And for me, it was also interesting that nowadays politicians start to use the argument if they have done something really wrong to say, oh no, that wasn't me, that video is manipulated, even if it was like a real video. So it's kind of starts to people start to play with the argument. I thought that was kind of disturbing.
What's even worse is that people would even mention that it is a deep fake, right? So they would even use that term, and it's actually interesting. This actually came out in a couple of instances. There was, for example, this governor in Brazil who was caught in a sex scandal and with videotapes, and I think his legal team actually mentioned that was a deep fake. And during the Capitol riot, it was interesting when Donald Trump made his speech the day after. His supporters were actually claiming that his video was a deep fake. And I think what's really dangerous is that sometimes it doesn't even matter like if it's believable or not what people say, but it's just the fact that people are saying something. It can be something that's obviously not true, but I think one thing that is kind of dangerous is just the fact that people consume information in the way that they're doing nowadays, that you can manipulate how people think, or people can even force how other people want to think.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. before we turn the conversation to something more positive, one last question. If we look at the content that's out there, and I don't know if you can give us an answer for that, but how much real good deepfake content that spreads misinformation would you say is already out there, and is it already out there? So.
I don't have a exact number. I think these kind of things are probably very difficult to estimate. There's actually one sort of like cybersecurity company. They're called Deeptrace. So they actually make these kind of analysis, and they try to basically crawl the web and look for content where that has been manipulated using deepfake technologies. I think some of the numbers that they have found is that they have around, back in 2020, it was like, I think 50,000 deepfakes, mostly, used for non-consensual pornography. I think it's like 93%. And then the year after, it doubled, right? You had basically hundred thousands of videos. And now we're in 2022, maybe it doubled again. And I wouldn't be surprised. I think another aspect that is probably worth mentioning is that, when we see deep fakes, the most convincing and the most scary one is the one with the video, because we're used to videos. But what's important is to know that it's not just video manipulations; it's also audio, right? So it's actually, there are a lot of tools and open source technologies that allow people to change their voice into someone else's voice. And, you can authenticate yourself, over phone as another person. It changes not only your voice, but even your accent, right? And it's very similar to these kind of video-based deepfake technologies. These kind of things can run in real time. You don't even need a lot of samples. So it's pretty much like, what you've seen in Mission Impossible, right? You have the person read one sentence. Back then, we thought this is something, only in movies is possible. But, these are techniques that are possible nowadays. And they will continue to evolve. And you'll basically have next generation deepfake technologies that are not only better, they're going to be more accessible. And you can do things that you couldn't do before, right? So you can even subtle things, right? Imagine now you're having conversation with me. I could be able to change my appearance. I could do this and that to whatever you're seeing.
I've seen the magic that you can work with your technology with changing the faces and the voices. That was fascinating and scary at the same time. Just on a very personal note, because you mentioned that deepfake is mainly used for non-consensual pornography. What I wanted to add there, just so that it's out there and awareness, on that point, we also need to pressure lawmakers, because actually there is, in most of the countries worldwide, no law that protects you if your face is used and put on another on another body within pornography, and it does destroy lives. And I think we need to adapt our legal system also to new technologies, not just for that case, but in a more broader sense. We do have, I think, 7 minutes left, so I go to the positive aspects of the technology. As I have mentioned at the very beginning, I came across deepfake through two films we had in our program last year, which is Welcome to Chechnya and Dear Future Children, where the filmmakers actually used deepfake in order to protect the protagonists. And I don't know how many film lovers are out there in the audience, but for me, who watches lots of documentaries, it's always very hard to build up a connection to a person where the face is just blurred. So giving them a face and human expression just helped me to build up a relationship to them. So I thought that was a very positive way of using this kind of technology. So when I researched all this and all these scary moments came up, I thought it's also important to talk about the positive aspects of the technology. So my question would be, is there a way to use it for the common good, not just to leave it to the bad guys? And which are, in your personal opinion, the most interesting perspectives of using this technology for an artistic approach, but also for a common good approach?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, I think the term deepfake is almost like assumed it's something negative. And when you ask me, like, I won't disagree, right? That when you just say, I want to manipulate a video, it just, like, why would you want to do that? What can be good in this, right? So obviously there's something negative about wanting to alter something that is authentic. But if you think about it, one of the original motivations to even develop this technology has never been for malicious purposes. It was for applications that are in the space of entertainment, so for creative uses. And I think what is really amazing is that, now we can actually see that, more and more people in the creative space are adopting this kind of technology for things that are, positive, right? So you already mentioned, Welcome to Chechnya. I think that's a very, very powerful movie where, they try to anonymize people for their safety using, these kind of deepfake technologies. And I'm pretty sure many of you have already seen movies where deepfakes were used, right? So if you think about the which one? Oh, the Book of Boba Fett. If you remember the young Luke Skywalker, I mean, they wanted to basically bring back an actor. I mean, he's still alive, but they wanted to have him at the same age as he was, back in the 70s. And the only way to do this properly is either you do VFX or you use something that is not only cheaper but higher quality, to use some deepfake technology to generate these kind of effects, right? So I think one thing that, for especially when you mention for in the creative space, right? So what it allows you to do is, it's a new kind of tool that allows you to do visual effects that were previously very, very expensive and very difficult to achieve in a more accessible way. So this is a tool for directors and creatives to do things like, I want to age someone, I want to de-age someone, I want, for example, make a baby talk, I want to bring back people who have passed away. Imagine that now you have a tool that allows you to bring back historical figures, people that people were unable to see anymore, and you can tell new kinds of stories. And to that note, also to mention, our company has recently been working on a very big project where we were the first to actually translate an entire movie from German Polish. So it's a Holocaust movie called The Champion, from German Polish to English. And what we did was we actually brought back the original actors who were Polish and spoke German, and we recorded their performances. And what we did was we reenacted all the performances in the movie and made the actors speak as if they were original, speaking in English during the filming. So that's really amazing, because imagine that now you can watch dubbed movies without having these weird, unsynchronization between the lips and the voice. So simply imagine if you can watch a Squid Game perfectly synced in any language that you want.
I'm fascinated because I'm really annoyed by this by dubbed films exactly because of this, because it just sets your mind off. That wow, sorry, I didn't know that was possible. So we are at the end of our very brief time. As my absolutely last question already, if you just mentioned a very interesting project. What is something you're looking forward in the field of deepfake in the future? Where do you think is the next step that is very exciting to come?
Yeah, so I think one direction that's, I mean, right now when we look at these AI media synthesis, a lot is focused on face manipulations. And there's actually a reason for that. It's because there's so many face data around and it's easy to do face recognition. That's why a lot of the things that we see is on faces. But one thing that I think we'll see very soon, and there's a lot of development right now, is on more general scenes, and also not just like 2D manipulations, but also things in 3D or scene generations. And what is going to happen is that we will basically see new forms of immersive and 3D content that uses this form of what we call neural rendering. And what you can actually do is you can actually generate, new scenes, new worlds that look exactly like the real one, without, traditional computer graphics pipelines. And those kind of things will be made more accessible to people. So I think we're going to experience new forms of 3D media that can be, highly realistic and generated by anyone.
That sounds like a very exciting perspective and a very positive one. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for getting up that early. It was a pleasure to having this conversation with you. Thank you for the audience for being with us, and I hope we sparked general interest in the issue to go deeper and do more research on it. Thanks.